My husband Ethan was reborn and returned to the age of 17 in the principal's office. He stood up for his so-called white moonlight, the girl who had bullied me in high school. Holding her in his arms, he roared in fury as if acting out some tragic love drama. Call the police. Check the surveillance footage. This time I will expose your true face in front of everyone. I was also reborn. On my way here I had already called the police for him. No need to thank me. That idiot was in the restroom of the academic building. Madison hummed a tune as she pressed a cigarette butt against my fingertip, the sound of running water masking her cruelty. Olivia, I'm warning you. Don't think that just because Mrs. Warren likes you, you can get close to Logan, she sneered, her eyes filled with contempt. You're nothing more than a stray dog the Warren family picked up out of pity. Madison was my sister-in-law. She was the adopted daughter of my mother-in-law, Mrs. Warren. The Aunt Warren she was referring to had taken her in from an orphanage. Mrs. Warren had spent her life devoted to charity, sponsoring many underprivileged children who had no access to education. I was one of them. At the high school opening ceremony, I was chosen to give a speech because I ranked first in the entrance exam. Sitting in the front row as a board member of the school, Mrs. Warren immediately recognized me. She was overjoyed and asked me to tutor her son, my classmate Ethan. I agreed, thinking it was just an ordinary favor. But Madison, who had been secretly in love with Ethan for years, clearly didn't see it that way. She started bullying me, slapping me, tearing my homework, stuffing razor blades into my desk, pouring lime powder into my water cup, and even leading a group of delinquents to follow me after school. In my past life, I endured it all because I didn't want to make things difficult for Mrs. Warren. But before she died, she told me something. She had always known. From the very beginning she had stood above it all, watching as I struggled in the abyss. She saw everything I suffered as a necessary trial to make me the perfect daughter-in-law. She said she was pleased with the result because, just as she had envisioned, I had turned out to be loyal, capable and patient, like a well-trained dog. She had not wasted her efforts after all. When I became the top science student in the province, she had forcibly arranged my engagement to Ethan. Are you mute? Speak. Madison suddenly flew into a rage and slapped me across the face. The pain snapped me back to reality. I suddenly realized this wasn't another nightmare. This was a rebirth. A real chance to change everything. My fingers trembled uncontrollably at the thought. Madison reached to grab my hair, but I seized her wrist in an instant. You're sure no one will come here? I asked. Of course. Madison smirked smugly. I had my people block the stairways. No teacher will be passing by. Good. That's perfect. I twisted her wrist as she let out a sharp scream of pain. I dragged her into a stall and shoved her face into the toilet. Madison struggled desperately under my grip, but it didn't shake me in the slightest. After all, I grew up in a poor mountain village. Cutting firewood and gathering grass was nothing to me. Strength was something I had. Madison, pampered her whole life, was no match for me. I yanked her up by her long hair and smiled. How's the toilet water taste? Madison's lips quivered, her mascara smudged into a mess. She opened her mouth, trying to scream. I shoved her back in. This time I held her down longer. When I finally let go, she was much quieter. She didn't dare cry out anymore, only sobbed in pitiful whimpers. I'm going to report you. You bullied me, Olivia. Just wait to be expelled. I sneered. Be my guest. I dragged Madison out of the stall by her hair. Go ahead and report me. But remember, so long as I'm in this school, every single day will be like this for you. Don't ever think you'll have it easy. These were the exact words Madison had said to me in my past life. Now I was returning them all. Madison ran off crying. I knew she was going to tattle. Compared to a penniless scholarship student like me, the daughter of the G family could easily pull strings. I didn't care. I returned to the stall. Then I rammed my head against the water pipe on the wall. And just like that, I reunited with the Warren family earlier than before. Not at my engagement party with Ethan, but in the principal's office. Madison was bullied like this by Olivia. I don't care what the reason is, Olivia must be expelled today. Ethan roared at the principal. Madison trembled in his arms, her clothes soaked, clinging to her soft, delicate figure. Mrs. Warren sat on the sofa, dressed in elegant finery and adorned with jewelry. She didn't speak, but the fact that she was here at all already conveyed her stance. Oh dear Ethan, we haven't clarified the situation yet. Let's not jump to conclusions, the principal said leisurely, sipping his tea. What did you just say? Ethan roared. At that moment the door creaked open. My homeroom teacher carefully helped me inside. The corner of my mouth was bruised, my right hand wrapped in a cast and suspended in a sling. The torn collar of my uniform exposed several swollen cigarette burns on my skin. Ethan suddenly froze, like a goose that had just been strangled mid-squawk, unable to make another sound. Mrs. Warren's face was filled with shock, while Madison nearly jumped out of Ethan's arms. I turned to Mrs. Warren first, nodding slightly. Mrs. Warren, I'm sorry we have to meet under these circumstances. What happened? She asked, stepping forward and grasping my uninjured hand, her expression filled with concern. Tell me the truth, dear. What's going on? I bit my lip, hesitating as if debating whether to speak. Mrs. Warren's tone became firmer. Olivia, be honest with me. I lifted a finger and pointed directly at Madison. Madison shrieked. She's lying. She hit me, Aunt Warren. Look at my clothes, they're soaked. I remained calm, my voice steady. After school, Madison dragged me into the restroom and had her people block the stairway so no one could pass. Then she tore my clothes, burned me with a cigarette and called me a... I glanced at my ruined uniform, the cigarette burns still fresh on my skin. I never laid a hand on her. My clothes got wet because she shoved me into a broken water pipe, causing it to burst. Madison lunged at me, screeching. You're lying. You broke your own arm just to frame me. I didn't respond. My gaze fell on the pocket of her wet uniform. The fabric had turned nearly transparent, revealing the bright red cigarette pack and lighter inside. Mrs. Warren's expression darkened. Without hesitation she stepped forward, reached into Madison's pocket and yanked out the cigarette pack and lighter. The red pack landed on the floor with a crisp sound, a clear and mocking accusation. Still want to lie? Mrs. Warren's voice was ice cold. Are you saying Olivia burned herself just to set you up? Madison's face turned pale. Who is that? Mrs. Liu, my landlord, was sitting outside her door on a small stool, basking in the sun. Her beady eyes glowed with curiosity as she darted glances between me and Sean, my second uncle. I replied smoothly, slipping a carton of discounted eggs I'd bought on the way into Sean's hands. He was on a business trip nearby and decided to check in on me. Sean was quick on the uptake. Immediately he began handing out eggs to the neighbors, playing the role to perfection. Yeah, I happened to be in the area for work, he said with a smile. Then I got a call from the school about my niece getting hurt, so I dropped by. Figured I'd bring some groceries too. It's nothing much, just a small token of thanks for everyone taking care of her. Mrs. Liu's suspicions melted away as she cradled the eggs, but she wasn't quite satisfied yet. Your uncle must be pretty well off, huh? Driving such a fancy car for a business trip. Sean remained perfectly composed. Oh, the car belongs to my boss. I'm just the driver. Uncle, hurry up and bring the stuff inside, I cut in, urging him along. You still have to pick up your boss after his meeting. He nodded, then pulled 2 crates of milk, a bag of vegetables and a large gift pack of snacks from the trunk. The snack bag had a grinning cartoon baby on the front, dressed in nothing but a vest and shorts, so cheerful it looked like it was celebrating Chinese New Year. Any lingering gossip died on the spot. With nothing interesting left to see, the neighbors lost interest and dispersed. Once the door was shut, Sean burst into laughter. So, I'm your second uncle now? What else? I shot him a deadpan look. A fallen high school girl and her sugar daddy? I still have my dignity, you know. And I'm sure you wouldn't want to become the latest scandal in this gossip-infested village either. Fair enough, Sean agreed, nodding. Then without warning he reached out and ruffled my hair until it looked just as messy as his. I was about to claw at him when he quickly dodged out of reach, still laughing. Take care of yourself, kid, he called out as he left. Scram. I snapped. But Sean didn't even make it out of the alley before he was suddenly yanked by the collar and nearly stumbled. Despite his tech nerd appearance, Sean was still tall and a healthy young man. Reacting instantly, he kicked the person away, sending them rolling across the ground. Who the hell are you? He demanded. The man scrambled to his feet, looking disheveled. It was Ethan. Ethan hadn't expected anyone else to be here. His expression darkened as he looked at Sean. Who are you? Why are you in Olivia's house? Sean turned to me with a raised brow. You know this guy? I sighed. In a place like this, even the smallest commotion would draw a crowd. People were already gathering, whispering about my relationship with Ethan. How annoying. Yeah, I said simply. His name's Ethan. His sister is the one who attacked me at school. He's probably here to cause trouble. There was no way I was going to introduce him as my ex-husband from my past life. Sean gave me a nod, then very naturally stepped in front of me, shielding me behind him. Ethan's eyes landed on our hands, on the money Sean had just placed in mine. His face twisted in fury. Olivia, who the hell is this guy? He roared. None of your damn business, I replied impatiently. Of course it's my business. I'm. Ethan choked on his words, his eyes growing red with frustration. I tightened my grip on my new phone and stared at him coldly. If he dared to say anything remotely disgusting like, husband, I'd call the psych ward and have him checked for delusional disorder. While I was at it, I might as well sue him for defamation. Showing up at my house in broad daylight, screaming like a lunatic, making it seem like I was cheating on him. What would people think if they saw this? This was outright damaging my reputation. I stepped forward, placing myself between Ethan and Sean. This is my problem, I said flatly. No need to involve anyone else. If Ethan suddenly lost it and attacked, Sean might get hurt. Ethan stared at me and Sean, his expression growing darker and darker. His fury boiled over. He reached out, trying to grab me, but Sean was faster. Sean blocked Ethan's arm with a quick sidestep and shoved him backward, making him stumble against the wall. You're asking who I am? Sean lifted his chin proudly. I'm Olivia's second uncle. Fine. I silently stepped aside, giving the stage to my second uncle.